A single mother with a big heart.
If you needed anything, she was always there.
She was a sweet girl. Everybody loved her.
Is the victim of a bizarre murder.
Duct tape had been wrapped around her head about 14 times.
This is nothing I had ever seen before or even heard of before.
Leaving her young son as the only witness.
A 4-year-old child had been just mere feet away, his mother being killed.
Investigators focus on the men in her life.
This night, he wouldn't look at us. He was more nervous than normal.
And that polygraph test, he passed. It was frustrating as hell.
She was using Norma's house for these sexual liaisons.
To unveil a killer hiding in plain sight.
Of everyone we dealt with, he was maybe the coolest customer of the bunch.
People didn't see that inner demon. He was an unexpected killer.
It just blows you away.
Port Hueneme, California, a peaceful beach town on the Pacific coast.
It's a hidden gem. Port Hueneme is about 60 miles north of LA. It's a completely different environment. It's a lot more relaxed.
It's a quiet town, and it's a town that has, for a long time, a ridiculously low crime rate and very rarely a homicide.
But the tranquility of the seaside community is shattered one summer morning when police get an urgent call.
On June 1st, 1993, it was about 7 o'clock in the morning, our dispatch received a call of a possible homicide.
An ex-husband had called up and said that his ex-wife had been murdered.
We hadn't had a homicide in over 3 years. It took me a second to realize, okay, this is real.
Detectives arrive to begin the investigation, but nothing can prepare them for the scene inside.
I got inside the house, and then it was like, oh my God. This is just too bizarre for words. She's laying on the floor, head encased in duct tape. It had been partially cut away, but it appeared as though someone had tried to wrap her like a mummy.
It went from the top of her forehead to the chin.
It was just incredibly strange. This is nothing I had ever seen before or even heard of before.
And some rigor mortis had set in the back portion of her body because she was laying on the back. Usually rigor mortis takes a number of hours to show up. We estimated that the victim probably died in the early morning hours. When I saw that duct tape, the first thing that entered my mind was this was somebody she knew. Whoever did it didn't want to have her look at them while they were committing the crime.
Looking to unravel the mystery of this bizarre murder, detectives turn to the victim's ex-husband, who claims to have discovered the body.
At the house, the ex-husband was there, his brother was there, and 2 younger sons were there.
The ex-husband, Tony, identifies the victim as 32-year-old Norma Rodriguez, mother to 2 boys, Andrew, 11 years old, and Austin, 4 years old.
Tony, he said that he had come over to the house to pick up the kids to take them to school, which was his regular practice.
The 2 boys were still asleep in their beds when Tony realized what had happened to their mother. He told them to stay in their room until police arrived.
Tony, his brother Hector, and the 2 sons were transported to the Port Hueneme Police Department, where they were going to be interviewed separately. Tony and Hector were first at the house, and we needed to determine what happened.
Police continue to comb through the house looking for clues.
It was not a scene of extreme violence. There wasn't blood anywhere. There weren't a lot of things overturned.
In the bedroom, we located her purse, and it was intact. There wasn't anything that seemed to be missing.
This was not like a burglary that had gone wrong.
There's no sign of forced entry into the home. Then, something else catches the detective's eye.
I noticed a set of keys that were on the floor. They were in an unusual location, close to her body. We checked and confirmed they were Norma's house keys.
But why were Norma's keys lying next to her body? As investigators finish processing the scene, Norma's sister, Aralia, arrives.
I was supposed to pick her up because we were going to go looking for a car for her. And I had been calling her and calling her. And I drove to her house. That's when I saw the yellow tape. I saw the police department there, and that's what they told me would happen. And my worst nightmare, did I ever would happen to my sister. It is horrible, horrible.
Norma Rodriguez was born and raised in rural Texas.
We're 7 sisters and 1 brother. She was the middle child, and I was really close to Norma. She was very quiet, very reserved, a very big heart. If you needed anything, she was always there.
I first met Norma in 1975 in junior high school. We were 14 years old, and we became friends right away. Well, we used to hang out together and just go everywhere together. She could be feisty, but she was a sweet girl. Everybody loved her.
After high school, Norma moved to Oxnard, California for college and soon fell for another student named Tony.
She loved him. She just loved being with him.
Their college romance became more serious, and 2 years later in 1982, Tony popped the question. They soon had their first son, Andrew, and their second son, Austin, arrived 7 years later.
She was just a great mom. Norma was very devoted to her boys. Her boys were her life.
But in 1991, after almost 10 years together, Tony and Norma's marriage became strained.
Tony was really never around.
She was getting into arguments and fights with Tony, asking him to provide for them. She realized it would be an easier life for her if she just went on her own without Tony. And that's what she did.
Later that year, Norma moved with her sons to the neighboring town of Port Hueneme. She got a job at a local retail store and started a new chapter in her life.
Being a single mom, people might think that's a hard job. She enjoyed it. And it was hard for her, but she was happy.
Who would want to take the life of this loving mother, and in such a bizarre way? Later that day, at police headquarters, detectives began to interview Norma's ex-husband, Tony Rodriguez, and his brother, Hector.
As the first 2 parties to the scene, the investigators had to look at them.
The detectives asked Tony about how he found Norma earlier that day.
Tony, he said that he had knocked on the door, but Norma didn't answer. Sons Andrew and Austin were asleep. The door was locked, so then he used a credit card in order to slip the lock, and he was able to open the front door.
When Tony and Hector entered the living room, they saw Norma lying on the floor, her face wrapped in duct tape.
Hector told us that he cut the tape because they didn't know whether she was deceased or not, and they wanted to try to make it easier for her to breathe. He's the one that had the scissors in his possession, and he's the one that decided to cut the tape off of her face.
We thought, wow, that's a little strange. Why is this guy doing this? Why is he messing up our evidence? Hector told us that the body was still somewhat warm. And that didn't make sense because by that time she had full rigor mortis. I mean, she had obviously been deceased for a number of hours. I just wasn't buying it.
Investigators are skeptical. Is Hector misleading police because the 2 men have something to hide? They hone in on Tony and Hector as possible suspects.
We don't know these people. We don't know what they're capable of.
Tony and Hector are suspicious. And Tony, being Norma's ex, he was right at the top of our list.
Coming up, detectives broaden their hunt for a possible killer.
We've got countless potential witnesses, countless potential suspects, interviews with co-workers.
We didn't know who it was. I just wanted him off the streets.
Investigators suspect a love interest from Norma's past has something to hide.
It was a brief but intense relationship.
It was that selfishness, that narcissistic quality that would cause him to end someone else's life.
And what police uncover shocks everyone.
All this time, were we dealing with a true sociopath? And, could see it.
Mother of 2, Norma Rodriguez, has been found murdered with her head wrapped in duct tape. Less than 24 hours into the investigation, detectives are interviewing their first suspect, starting with her ex-husband, Tony Rodriguez.
In a case like this, statistics will show you that an overwhelming amount of the time it's going to be that significant other or former significant other who ends up being your suspect.
Investigators ask Tony about his relationship with Norma in the weeks leading up to her death.
At the time, Tony said that they had been separated for a couple of years. I don't believe they had filed for divorce yet, but they were living separately, and Tony had visitation rights. They weren't close friends anymore, but they tried to maintain the friendship for the boys.
But police have a different account from Norma's family.
We learned that shortly before the homicide, there were some conflicts.
Norma, she was upset at the fact that he would come make excuses to come over with the boys, but he would end up wanting to stay there. She used to complain about that. I said, don't let him in. He doesn't have the right to come into your house. And she was a little timid when it came down to Tony.
According to loved ones, Tony couldn't accept that Norma was moving on. Detectives press him about his whereabouts and the hours surrounding Norma's murder.
Tony said that on May the 30th, early afternoon, he talked with Norma and asked if their son Andrew could stay with him. Tony had tickets to an Angels game the next day, and so they agreed that that was okay.
Tony says Andrew was dropped back home the next night. At the time, Tony never entered the house. He found Norma's body the next day. Did Norma's ex innocently walk into the crime scene that morning, or had something more sinister happened?
The potential motive with him was he wanted the kids. Maybe one thing led to another, and he lost control.
In a room nearby, police questioned Tony's brother Hector, since he was with him when Norma's body was found. They asked where he and Tony went after dropping Norma's son at his mom's.
Hector, he said that they had been at his residence with other family members in the city of Oxnard. And when we interviewed those family members, they corroborated what Tony and Hector told us.
Knowing their alibis are far from concrete, detectives asked Tony and Hector to take polygraph tests.
The results of the tests were that they were being honest in stating that they did not know anything about the homicide.
With no hard evidence to hold them, investigators are forced to let the two men go. News of Norma's death quickly spreads through the small community.
When I found out about her being murdered like that, I had told my cousin that I had just talked to her. It can't be true because I just talked to her. It was true.
At the police station, detectives received the results of the autopsy.
The cause of death was established as manual strangulation. Norma wasn't a tiny woman. Whoever did this had to possess significant upper body strength.
Some important details emerge about the duct tape.
The length of it was approximately 20 feet and had been wrapped around her head about 14 times.
The duct tape was examined, and there were skin cells that were discovered. But in 1993, DNA technology was in its infancy. You had to have a fairly significant sample size in order to potentially get a result from it. In Norma's case, they didn't have nearly enough in these samples.
To find out who did this, we have to dig deeper.
Searching for new leads, detectives hope Norma's 11-year-old son, Andrew, can help. With Tony's consent, the detectives talk with him at the station.
When you're interviewing any type of a witness, it's a difficult process. And you have to understand that. When you're interviewing a child, it's extremely difficult. We interviewed Andrew and just wanted to try to get as much information as we could. From the date of the homicide, Andrew had gone to a baseball game with his father and his uncle. Later at night, Andrew was dropped off at the house, and the house was dark.
Andrew walked up to the front door, found it was locked. He went around to his bedroom, saw that the window was open, and crawled in.
Then, Andrew shares a disturbing detail told to him by his younger brother.
When Andrew came into the bedroom, 4-year-old Austin had said, "Mommy has a Band-Aid on her face." That didn't register immediately with Andrew, and so he went to bed. And it wasn't until morning that Andrew found out exactly what Austin meant by a Band-Aid. It just ripped at your heart knowing that a 4-year-old child had been just mere feet away from his mother being killed. And at one point he had come out, he had seen his mother's body. That just ripped at me a lot.
What else had Norma's youngest son, Austin, seen? Detectives decide to speak to the 4-year-old.
At first he was withdrawn. He really didn't want to talk about it, which was understandable. I knew that because he's 4 years old, and I couldn't have gone on much longer than I did. And I knew that I needed to stop. But then he mentioned a man by the name of Corey.
he brought up the name Corey as someone who was over at the house at that time. Now we've got this person who might end up being our prime suspect.
But who was Corey? Had he killed Norma? Did the single mom's youngest son just solve her murder?
We've got to run it down as far as it goes.
Police are investigating the bizarre murder of single mother Norma Rodriguez. Her youngest son, Austin, says he saw a man named Corey at their home around the time of the murder.
At that time, we had no idea who Corey was, but it was something that had checked out.
Detectives learned from the family that Corey could be Corey Davis, one of Norma's co-workers. So they head to her workplace.
First step was find out, to what extent Corey knew Norma, if they socialized, if they were friends away from work, and so forth.
Corey was more nervous than normal. In talking with him, he wouldn't look at us. He kept staring down, not tuning in or paying attention.
Corey's unusual behavior during the conversation alarms investigators.
He did not like being talked to and having to answer anything.
They questioned Corey about his relationship with Norma.
He stated that he would interact with Norma at work, but they weren't that close with each other, and they didn't have any interactions beyond that.
Detectives want to know if he was at Norma's house near the time of her murder, as young Austin claimed.
He made it pretty clear that he wasn't at the house at that time. Instead, he said the night of the homicide he was at home. The only people who were there at home with him were his parents. We needed to find out how much of what he was telling us was, provably true.
While officers are sent to check Corey's alibi, detectives speak to Norma's other coworkers, starting with her friend, Beatrice.
Beatrice came to Norma's house on Sunday, the day before the homicide. Norma had a get-together, a small barbecue at her house for several of her co-workers.
Police asked Beatrice if she remembers anything unusual about the day of the barbecue.
Beatrice said that while she was there, suddenly Norma can't find her keys anymore. And they ended up searching all over Norma's house, trying to figure out what happened to Norma's keys.
They didn't find them, and then they're laying beside her body, beside her house at the time she's found. We figured someone had taken her keys, and that's how they were able to enter the house.
It's a significant lead. Does this mean the killer stole the keys at Norma's barbecue? Detectives renew their focus on her inner circle.
From everything we knew, this was a pretty personal crime. We had a certain confidence that the killer knew Norma.
At the police station, investigators discover information they received from Corey Davis has some holes.
One of the things we do with everyone is we find out what their addresses are, their birth, everything else. And with Corey Davis, one of the things we noticed was that his address he gave us was not the address where he was actually living. So there was a discrepancy there.
Why would Corey withhold that information from detectives? They wonder what else he's hiding.
But at this point in time, Corey jumped out at us, as this is the one we need to concentrate on.
Police bring Corey in for an interview, but he's far from helpful.
He's like, well, I don't want to be involved in this. Well, I understand that, but like it or not, you are part of this case. If you want to be eliminated from the suspect pool, the best way to do that is to cooperate with us.
Detectives share details of the crime with Corey to observe his reaction.
With the information that we were giving to him, he was obviously upset, and he took it really hard.
Corey denies any involvement in Norma's death. They ask him to take a polygraph test.
He submitted to the test, and he passed.
All detectives have tied Corey to the crime scene is a statement from Norma's 4-year-old son. But police know he could be mistaken, given his young age and traumatic experience.
At that point, Corey worked his way down the ladder of possible suspects dramatically.
1 week into the investigation, detectives are out of leads. They look at who else was at Norma's barbecue the day before she was killed. Friends tell them about a former coworker named Warren Mackey.
Warren Mackey was a previous co-worker of Norma's, and also he lived in fairly close proximity to her.
Warren and Norma hit it off and became friends.
They worked together for a while, and the work relationship became a social relationship, and it appeared that Warren had something more than just a friendship interest in Norma.
I remember Norma telling me that there was a guy there that she used to work with, and he was always trying to talk to her and trying to ask her out.
Talking to Norma's coworkers, detectives learned that Warren pursued Norma, but she wasn't interested in him romantically.
Norma told Beatrice and some of the other people that she felt that Warren wanted more than to be friends, and that she wasn't interested in that. She tried to curtail any attempts that he may have made to ask her out. Some of the employees that we talked with felt that Warren wasn't real pleased with her. He liked Norma, and that he wanted the relationship a little bit more than what it was.
But Norma still tried to maintain their friendship.
She noticed he was kind of like an outcast, just very private. So she tried to include him in the group. She didn't want to leave him out.
As detectives look closer at the quiet coworker, the information they uncover is concerning.
Started picking up little details about him at that point. There were some people who said, yeah, good guy, he was okay to work with. But there were enough people who pointed out that he was a little weird and had made some overtures to Norma, enough to make us want to look into this a little further.
But did Warren's workplace crush make him a killer?
The nature of the relationship was of interest to us. We're going to have a conversation with Warren Mackey.
Police investigating the murder of single mother Norma Rodriguez are questioning her former coworker, Warren Mackey. Detectives have learned that Warren may have been more than a doting colleague. They're trying to determine if he's connected to this brutal crime.
In our first encounter with Warren Mackey, there was nothing that seemed overtly suspicious or evasive or anything about him.
Detectives ask Warren about his feelings for Norma.
The impression that Warren Mackey gave us was that, his relationship with Norma Rodriguez was pretty casual. They didn't see quite as much of each other because they were no longer working with each other. But they socialized a lot.
Warren said that they were close, but it was only a close friendship. He never had romantic feelings for Norma.
He had tried to present himself to Norma as someone to lean on, someone to talk to. I'm here for you.
But investigators aren't fully buying it.
We felt that Warren liked Norma and that he wanted to make the relationship closer than it already was.
Then, Warren reveals a detail that grabs investigators' attention.
He had helped out Norma with, a couple little things around the house. And one of the things that he mentioned was that the kids had a small basketball hoop and it had somehow gotten broken and that he had fixed it. And what really kind of set off an alarm was the fact that he had fixed it with duct tape.
This is the first time in the investigation that anybody's mentioned duct tape or someone possessing duct tape.
Detectives drilled down on when Warren last saw Norma.
Warren said that he had been in the presence of Norma at the barbecue the day before the homicide. By the time things had wrapped up for the evening, it was essentially just him and Norma there, and they had just kicked back and watched TV for a while. This made him one of the last people who could have or would have seen Norma alive.
Had the former coworker made advances on Norma, then attacked her when she turned him down? Detectives ask where Warren was on the night of the murder.
Warren said that on May the 31st, close to Norma's homicide, he and his roommate and his roommate's girlfriend, they went to a nightclub in Santa Barbara till about 1:30, and then they came back to where they were living at in Oxnard. They talked for a short while, and then everybody went to bed. We drove to Oxnard, and we ended up talking with his roommate and her girlfriend who had gone with him for the night, and they corroborated his story as far as them going to Santa Barbara, closing the nightclub, and then getting back probably between 1:30 and 2 in the morning.
Could Warren have had time to drive to Port Hueneme and kill Norma after arriving home from a late night out with friends? Warren agrees to take a polygraph.
And he passed it, stating that he knew nothing about the homicide. He knew no one who would have killed her.
With nothing concrete tying him to the crime, police let Warren go. But before he leaves, Warren remembers Norma had problems with a man she was dating almost a year ago, named Daniel Garcia.
As the investigation continued, we started interviewing a number of people about Daniel. We found out that Daniel Garcia was Norma's boyfriend for a short period of time.
Then at a party, Norma had a strong attraction to the charming mechanic.
It was a brief but intense relationship, lasted a few months.
She told me about Daniel, that she really cared about him a lot. You know, they would do fun things together, and she always had a good time with him.
Friends tell police Daniel ended the relationship, blindsiding Norma.
Daniel had approached Norma and essentially told her that he wanted to go back with a former girlfriend. But Norma was affected quite a bit by the breakup.
Then, detectives learned that the relationship was turbulent.
There was some fraying in the relationship, and there were some conflicts. Now that sends up some big red flags. There was one coworker who mentioned that they had witnessed a fairly heated argument between Norma and Daniel.
Daniel came in while she was working. For whatever reason it started, they had a verbal altercation that was witnessed by other people. It shows hostile feelings on the part of Daniel Garcia.
When detectives dig deeper into Daniel and Norma's relationship, they learn he visited Norma at home about 2 weeks before her murder.
Norma confided to her close friend she was involved with him before her death.
With a history of conflict in the relationship, did an argument turn deadly?
This is big. Any big fight that went on, that was problematic.
Detectives are closing in on their new suspect.
This could be our guy. We have to find out if he could have committed this crime.
The investigation into the murder of single mother Norma Rodriguez is heating up. Police have a new suspect in their sights, an ex-boyfriend, Daniel Garcia.
One of the things that we learned about the relationship between Daniel and Norma was that there were some conflicts. That sends up some red flags.
Daniel agrees to come to the police station for questioning.
Norma really had no confrontations. She was very mild-mannered. The fact that she was getting into verbal altercations was unusual.
When detectives ask Daniel about his relationship with Norma, he denies any problems.
Daniel said that he wanted to go back with a former girlfriend, and so they broke up and went their separate ways. But they were still able to be somewhat friends, and he would stop by on occasion.
Detectives confront him about the heated argument with Norma at her workplace almost a year earlier.
At the time, Norma learned that he had had other relationships, and it was a problem. She was pretty upset by that.
She still had feelings for Daniel.
Had Norma attempted to restart their relationship, but instead wound up in a fight that spiraled out of control.
During his interview, Daniel told us that he saw Norma but didn't have an argument.
Detectives asked Daniel where he was the night Norma was killed.
He stated that he was at home with other family members watching TV, and then he went to bed. We talked with other family members, and that alibi was corroborated. But family members will lie for other family members. Sometimes they won't be perfectly honest with what they know, and it's extremely difficult to put weight on that.
Like previous suspects, Daniel is subjected to a polygraph.
And he passed.
With no evidence connecting the ex-lover to the crime, police let him go. It's another disappointing dead end.
After a couple of weeks of going through this, talking to countless potential witnesses, countless potential suspects, neighborhood canvasses, interviews with co-workers, polygraph examinations, it was frustrating as hell.
That was really, really hard on my family. We did not have an answer to who killed Norma. I just wanted not only justice for Norma, I was very concerned for any woman out there. We didn't know who it was. It could be someone that just passed me by. I didn't know. I just wanted him off the streets.
1 month into the investigation, the pressure continues to mount on police to solve the case.
We would get calls from the media every day. Every place we went in the community, they would ask us what was going on, and it was a lot of pressure.
Then, a surprising development. Norma's family contacts police with new information about Beatrice, Norma's coworker and friend.
It turns out that Beatrice was having an affair, and she was using Norma's house as a location for these sexual liaisons. Norma knew about it and in fact condoned it and gave her a copy of her house key.
But why hadn't Beatrice disclosed this detail to police earlier.
We confronted Beatrice with this information. Initially, huge wave of embarrassment. But she laid it out on the line. She told us, the when, the how many times.
Detectives question whether the secret rendezvous led to Norma's murder.
Now we've got other people who had, either continued access to the house. Previously, they were on the periphery of this case. Now they've moved right to the center of it.
One person detectives immediately turned to is Beatrice's husband, who also knew Norma. Had he gone after Norma for helping his wife have a secret affair?
And now, suddenly, Beatrice's husband, he's potentially in the suspect pool. We have to find out if he has an alibi and if we can corroborate it.
He apparently didn't know his wife was having an extramarital affair in Norma's house.
That was not the most comfortable thing to do from an investigative standpoint, but it still had to be done. And, the guy was crushed. He was absolutely crushed.
Detectives questioned Beatrice's husband about his whereabouts on the night of Norma's murder.
He told us that he had been at work late that evening. We talked to a lot of his coworkers. Everything about this man was genuine.
6 months into the investigation of the murder of Norma Rodriguez, detectives worry the trail has gone cold.
No closer to narrowing it down than we were on day one.
This case was very mind-boggling. You build up things that, wow, this is going to be great, it's coming together, and then it falls apart. As time progressed, the leads started falling off. It was tough. It was really tough.
Months turn to years. For nearly a decade, the case is at a standstill. But Norma's family doesn't give up.
Every year, we'd call the police department for any updates, any new leads or anything. We kept it active. We didn't want this case forgotten.
During this entire investigation, I had the picture of Norma Rodriguez on my desk. I swore to her that I would never give up trying to find out who was responsible.
Then, 10 years to the day Norma was killed. An astonishing break in the case.
Worker with a crime lab. He had a lot of the evidence that we secured in the Norma homicide. He called me and he says, we have a match. We have a match on the DNA.
My head just exploded with 1,000 thoughts. It was just nuts.
I remember receiving the phone call and it was like winning the lottery.
It's been 10 years since 32-year-old Norma Rodriguez was found in her home, strangled and wrapped in duct tape. The case remained unsolved, with all leads turning out to be dead ends, until now. With advancements in DNA technology, evidence collected a decade ago has finally yielded results.
At the time of the autopsy of Norma Rodriguez, there were a number of samples that were taken. Hair samples, blood samples, and fingernail clippings.
The crime lab said we have a match on the DNA, and it comes back to Warren Mackey.
Warren, Norma's friend and former co-worker who had previously passed a polygraph and had an alibi for the night of the murder. At the time of the investigation, Warren had submitted his DNA and was cooperative.
Of everyone we dealt with, he was maybe the coolest customer of the bunch. It just blows you away.
Investigators start putting the pieces together about Warren Mackey.
If you're dealing with someone who's a true sociopath, they can get past the polygraph test. So now I'm thinking, all this time, were we dealing with a true sociopath and, couldn't see it?
We just went into high gear. We started unraveling everything again and doing what we needed to do.
Detectives start building a case based on forensics.
They evaluated DNA that we had gotten off of Norma's body, and we found Warren's DNA under Norma's fingernails.
The DNA evidence is a major breakthrough, but to build an airtight case, they want more.
The single biggest piece of physical evidence we had at the time was the duct tape. So it got sent off and it got tested.
The DNA that was obtained within the multiple layers of the duct tape was returned to Warren Mackey.
The odds of the DNA match being from someone else besides Warren Mackey was 1 in 810 billion. So we felt pretty confident that this was our person.
Investigators pieced together the events that led up to Norma's murder.
I think this was the classic case of a jilted suitor. And my guess is that he just got a flat-out rejection. He built up his expectations to a point where he couldn't take the fall.
Investigators believe in the early hours of May 31st, Warren Mackey entered Norma's home using keys he had stolen from her purse at the barbecue the day before.
According to Norma's son Andrew, the house was dark. Many times she would fall asleep watching TV. Maybe she fell asleep on the couch. She had no idea what was about to happen.
Detectives believe that's when Warren strangled Norma.
In his mind, she needed to die because she shouldn't have rejected him.
Then Warren wrapped her head in duct tape.
Trying to depersonalize the scene, and covered her face so that he wouldn't see it.
He ripped that duct tape, handling both ends of the duct tape, wrapped it completely around her face, and left.
Police also believe Norma's 4-year-old son, Austin, was in the next room, not realizing his mother had been murdered.
Austin didn't process, because he was a very small child. He was too young to process what had happened. An absolute nightmare.
After Warren kills Norma, he returns to his place in nearby Oxnard, as if nothing happened.
I believe that Warren Mackey was the type of person who felt that if I can't have her, nobody can. I think this was one sick individual who had no value for life. He had no right to do what he did.
On August 28, 2003, Ventura County investigators arrest Warren Mackey for the first-degree murder of Norma Rodriguez. Warren pleads not guilty.
During the subsequent 10 years, Warren had settled down. He had gotten married, had a job, was living a very stable life. His friends, neighbors said that he was a nice, caring man.
And for him to live 10 years after that and not even have any remorse, that is not human. I can't imagine what is in a person's head to even hurt another human in that way.
Then, on January 10, 2005, as investigators prepare for trial, the DA receives an unexpected call. Warren Mackey has changed his plea to guilty.
Warren Mackey is an unexpected killer because people didn't see that inner demon, that selfishness, that narcissistic quality that would cause him to end someone else's life. People just didn't see him that way, but he was that way, and he is that way.
On March 28, 2005, Warren Mackey is sentenced to 15 years to life for the murder of Norma Rodriguez.
Oh, it was phenomenal. It was such an elation. You felt like this weight being lifted.
At the end of the day, we achieved closure for the family, but there's never going to be complete closure.
The devastating loss of the vibrant single mother will forever be felt by her loved ones.
I think about Norma a lot. She was having a good life. And he took it away from her.
It still hurts like it happened yesterday. I miss her in my life. That wound does not heal. We just put it in the back burner. We have to live for Norma, and we have to go forward.
When two young women, Colleen Reed and Melissa Northrup, go missing in eerily odd similar circumstances, all signs point to a death row inmate who's on parole and on the run. Nobody can find that convicted killer, and a massive manhunt ensues. The way he killed people, the way he tortured them, the pleasure he took in it is on a whole different level.
Are you Melissa's killer?
No.
And in the aftermath of his trial, the corruption involved with the parole system is exposed for all the world to see. I've prosecuted a lot of really horrible people, but Kenneth McDuff is in a world of his own.
The evidence shows that this defendant is every person's nightmare.
No comment.
Melissa Northrup is a petite mother of 2 children and pregnant. But she's working these pre-dawn hours at a convenience store to make ends meet. Melissa Northrup's husband phones his wife just to check up on her. Becomes alarmed that she's not answering her phone. So he drives down there and goes in. There's no sign of his wife.
Melissa's husband, Aaron Northrup, when he found out that she was missing, immediately called the Waco Police Department.
911, yeah, this is Aaron Northrup at the police bank at 4200 LaSalle. I need a sheriff's DPS officer over here immediately. What's wrong? My wife is missing. She's not nowhere to be found from her store. The place was totally vacant. Customers were watching the store.
What is her name?
Melissa Ann Northrup.
We have a missing attendant at the Quick Pack. Her name is Melissa Ann Northrup, white female, 22 years of age. Her vehicle is also missing. There was some money missing from the store, and right now we're treating this as a robbery kidnapping. We have no suspects this time. Our husband, he has no idea where she's at neither. Of course, he's worried. Their whole family is worried. We just want to locate this young lady.
Well, I talked to my wife 5 minutes before this happened. All of a sudden, she just gone. And I don't know if you can imagine how that feels.
Investigators found a tan 2-door Thunderbird abandoned on the parking lot of a motel located just a few hundred feet from the convenience store where Melissa Northrup has disappeared. The police runs the registration and finds that it's registered to Kenneth Allen McDuff.
McDuff is a death row inmate in Texas who was surprisingly paroled out off of a life sentence 2.5 years before Melissa Northrup went missing. He was convicted of a triple homicide of some teenagers back in 1966.
In 1966, Kenneth McDuff and his accomplice, Troy Dell Green, set out on a mission. They went cruising for women, and they found 3 vulnerable teenagers, Edna Sullivan, Robert Brand, and his cousin, Mark Dunham, parked at a local high school on the baseball field, playing music, and they're just laughing and having fun. Little do they know, McDuff and Roy Dell Green are creeping, crawling toward the car. Roy Dell Green has a broken handle of a broomstick with him, and McDuff's got a revolver. He jumps up to the car window with his gun drawn, and then the nightmare starts. McDuff forced the 2 boys into the trunk of his car. He then took Edna Sullivan in Robert Brand's car and drove it down these country roads with Troy Dell Green following in McDuff's car. Finally, they came to a desolate place. He opens the trunk, and there's Robert Brand and his cousin, and he tells his accomplice, Roy Dell Green, they've seen us. I gotta kill them. And he shoots them. Then drags Edna Sullivan to the back of the car and assaults her with the broken handle of a broomstick. He straddled Edna Sullivan and placed the broomstick across her throat, and he crushed her larynx. McDuff and Roy Dell Green drove back to the Rosebud area where they lived, and then several days later, Roy Dell Green felt terribly guilty about what happened and spoke to the sheriff there and confessed what they had done. It was an absolutely terrible crime, absolutely brutal in every way. And so the sheriff and other deputies began looking for McDuff. They were able to find him. He tried to get away. There was some shooting, and then he was captured. The trial drew a lot of publicity.
The first time I heard the name Kenneth McDuff was in 1966. My father was U.S. Marshal at the time. He was talking to the sheriff of Falls County, and he was a tough guy, but he was visibly shaken up, and he was telling my dad about McDuff, and it made me sick. He was known as the Broomstick Killer because because that's what he used to kill Edna Sullivan with after he tortured her with it.
Rodell Green pleaded guilty to one of the murders and some of the circumstances, so he got a 5-year sentence and a 25-year sentence. And he turned state's evidence to testify against Kenneth McDuff. The jury found Kenneth McDuff guilty, and he was assessed the death penalty.
Six years after Kenneth McDuff had killed the 3 high school teenagers, Furman v. Georgia came down from the United States Supreme Court. In that landmark case, the Supreme Court said that the death penalty was unconstitutional because it was applied arbitrarily all across the country. That meant that every death row inmate in the country, including Kenneth McDuff, had their death sentence commuted to life.
Texas prisons had become very crowded. So, although he had originally gotten a death penalty, Kenneth McDuff was released from prison on parole.
When Kenneth McDuff had his sentence commuted to life, you want to believe, okay, we're still safe, because he would never be released to free society again. But he was. Everybody in the criminal justice system was wondering, how can this happen?
The Waco area, Central Texas area, certainly had its share of crime. But abductions, missing persons, well, that would have been pretty unusual. And then the circumstances of it were odd. So you suspect the worst.
The investigators didn't have a lot to go on. And when they came up with this license plate that came back to McDuff, that was something to work on. But that wasn't enough to find and to arrest Kenneth McDuff. You still have to have evidence, and you still have to investigate the case.
We knew we had to do something to try to find Melissa. If she was kidnapped by McDuff, the urgency was paramount.
All of a sudden, we learn about a case that sounds a whole lot like Melissa's.
Then please tell me we believe she's been abducted. Yeah, this is a nightmare.
We felt like McDuff probably got her.
And by the way, he's a killer.
I think that everyone wanted to believe that Melissa Northrup was out there still alive. Everybody was focused on trying to find her and track down her kidnapper.
Melissa's car was discovered by a fisherman near the gravel pit outside of Dallas. He contacted the local authorities. No fingerprints were found in Melissa's car, but the seat was pushed all the way back. Melissa was like 4'10", 4'11". Kenneth McDuff was a big guy. He was 6'3", 6'4", weighed probably 270 pounds or so. It indicated that a very large person, someone of McDuff's size, had been driving that car. An extensive search was conducted in that area, but she was not found.
One day after the car had been located, I received a missing persons report for Kenneth Allen McDuff, and this was reported by his mother, Addie McDuff. She said she'd not heard from him in days. She was concerned about him. Kenneth McDuff had a parole violation warrant at that time.
This is the oldest scam going. When a parolee has jumped parole and taken off, often a family member will say they're missing, just as a cover story.
With McDuff missing about the same time that Melissa Northrup was missing, and with McDuff's car within 100 feet or so of the convenience store, we thought that ought to give rise to some pretty action by the state to try to at least find the guy. Unfortunately, the DA says there's no probable cause. We're not getting a warrant to get McDuff, even though the woman's missing. Circumstantially, he's connected to it, and by the way, he's a killer.
This is just the way you follow the law, and that's what they were doing here. And they didn't have enough evidence to connect anybody to the disappearance of Melissa Northrup. So at that point, Bill Johnston came up with a novel approach to try and figure out where Kenneth McDuff was and get him in custody.
One of the deputies said, "We have a bail bond clerk whose boyfriend might have run around with McDuff." And I talked to the boyfriend, and I asked him, "What did you do with it?" And he said, "Well, he bought 2 tabs of LSD and gave me one." That's federal drug distribution. I called the U.S. magistrate judge and said, "Your Honor, I'd like to send over a complaint and warrant alleging a violation of 21 United States Code Section 841A1, distribution of a controlled substance, named LSD." The judge signed the warrant, and so a nationwide manhunt for Kenneth McDuff took place on the distribution of a single tab of LSD. It went through a huge effort by many agencies and many people.
The Central Texas Task Force, as we called it at the time, was the McLennan County Sheriff's Office, Waco Police, of course, U.S. Marshals. We had officers from ATF. It was an unbelievable effort on everybody's part to catch this guy as quickly as we could.
They did a search warrant at McDuff's parents' house, and during which the mother declared, "Don't frame little Junior." The father, he was in the garage of their house during the search, and I heard him say, "Oh, that boy's cost me a lot of money. You can kill him when you find him if you want to." I mean, it's a real loving family.
While the task force is looking for Melissa Northrup and Kenneth McDuff, they hear of the disappearance of someone from Austin, Texas that happened just a few months before. It sounds eerily similar to what happened to Melissa Northrup.
Colleen Reed and I were seriously dating. The 29th of December, 1991. She had errands to run, and she mentioned she had to go wash her car. And then probably about 9:30, I got the first call from the police department asking to speak to Colleen. And I said, "Well, she's not here. What's going on?" And they said, "Well, we found her car abandoned at the car wash, and we believe she's been abducted." I was surprised and obviously worried. Colleen was a gift from God. She was a blessing to me. She was 28 at the time, and we were talking about getting married and, having children and having a life together. She was very beautiful inside and out. She was just always looking to help people, and she cared about her community. She just volunteered for everything, and I think that was her passion, to do right things. We loved each other, no doubt about it.
The Colleen Reed case. Witnesses observed two males forcing a female into a Thunderbird.
We knew McDuff drove a tan Thunderbird. It's possible that it could have been the same car. So now we felt like McDuff was the one that probably got her. And so we were trying so hard to find out if she was still alive and maybe rescue her, along with Melissa Northrup.
Then there wasn't quite the technology today we might have gained from surveillance cameras. And so the approach that we took was, let's find everybody that knows McDuff and talk to him.
I was brought in as the liaison investigator since McDuff had spent so much time on death row. My job was interviewing ex-cons and guys out on parole that he knew from the penitentiary. He wasn't a very popular guy in the penitentiary.
He was running with really bad outlaws, scumbags of all kind.
Finally, we developed an acquaintance named Hank Worley.
Worley was a paroled ex-con.
It was told to us he was an associate of McDuff's, and he drove around with McDuff.
I started doing research on Worley, and I determined that he had a civil hearing. I walked over to the courthouse on the day of the hearing, and I caught Worley as he was walking out. I asked him if I could talk to him. Worley said he would. Took him to the Bell County Sheriff's Office Criminal Investigation Division. I started questioning Worley about the Reed and Northrup disappearance. Worley was extremely nervous, trying not to make eye contact. I wasn't sure what he knew, but I didn't want to put a whole lot of pressure on him, and I didn't want to lose him. So I told him I'll be back in touch. Hank Worley was living at Bloom Motel with his daughter. It's a rundown, low-rent hotel. I went to visit Hank several times. One evening, about 6 o'clock, I received a phone call from Hank Worley. He said, "I need to talk to you now." So I drive over, and he was waiting outside for me. He walks over to the passenger side door, and he says, "I was with McDuff when he took that girl in Austin." He said, "I gotta ask you a favor. Can I go talk to my daughter one last time because I'm probably not coming back?" I said yes. He said goodbye to his daughter. He came back, got in the car, and we went to the sheriff's office.
M. Steglich got Worley to tell what was probably 90% of the truth. And it was the worst thing I'd ever heard. And it remains the worst thing I'd ever heard.
When the investigators interview Hank Worley, not only does he talk about his own involvement, he gives them even more details about exactly what Kenneth McDuff did to Colleen Reed.
Worley started by saying he and McDuff went to Austin to get bent, which is to get high. And while they were driving on 5th Street, they see a female at a car wash. And McDuff made some statement that we're going to take that girl.
He tells us that Colleen Reed is washing her sports car at this car wash, and then McDuff pulls into the bay next to her, gets out, grabs her by the throat, brings her to the car, throws her in the back seat. McDuff gets in the back seat with her. Worley drives off. And then the torture begins.
Colleen Reed's hands were bound with shoelaces while they were in transit. They drove around Austin and then drove north on Interstate 35.
Worley told us McDuff is in the back seat torturing Colleen Reed with a cigarette over and over.
Worley drove a vehicle for 2 hours with a woman screaming.
He's visibly shaken up when he is remembering how loud her screams are. And he told us, he said, loud that hurt my ears. He had his head down and he was shaking. And then he went down on his knees. We're just in disbelief. And she begged Worley for help. Worley says, I was afraid of McDuff myself. There were all kind of ways Worley could have jumped out of the car and waved people down and got him involved, and McDuff would have been caught. But he was a low-life coward.
Colleen was taken to a field about 200 to 300 yards from Kenneth McDuff's parents' residence in Bell County.
McDuff drug her out of the car and reared back and hit her so hard in the face that Worley described it like a tree limb breaking. And so then he drags her over and threw her in the trunk. Afterwards, he took Worley by his house. McDuff let Worley out of the car, and McDuff drives off into the night with Colleen Reed in the trunk.
The level of brutality was shocking. We're speechless.
I was so angry. I can't even tell you what I wanted to do to Worley at the time.
What happened to her was everything we feared, and even worse. It's coming true. It all came to fruition. It's like, yeah, this is a nightmare. Sorry.
Although he didn't have any knowledge of Melissa Northrup's disappearance, the statement from Hank Worley is pretty hard to listen to, and it had to have gotten those investigators super fired up to try and find Kenneth McDuff.
Worley led us to believe that McDuff would have murdered Colleen Reed and buried her somewhere in that area of Bell County. The next day, there was a helicopter with an infrared unit on it. They had the entire Austin Police Cadet Academy come up and walk the fields. An enormous effort was made to try to find a grave, and none was ever found.
With Hank Worley's confession that he and Kenneth McDuff were the ones who abducted Colleen Reed, and Melissa Northrup going missing just 2 months after that in similar circumstances, the investigators knew they were on the right track. Kenneth McDuff was no longer just a person of interest. He is the sole suspect in the disappearance of Melissa Northrup.
What we know about Kenneth Allen McDuff, he's a violent, dangerous human being. And like the captain says, he needs to be off the streets.
Central Texas were on edge. People were scared to death that this creature would catch them or their wives or their daughters.
Almost 2 months after Melissa Northrup goes missing, a resident of South Dallas makes a grisly discovery.
Melissa Northrup's body is found in a deserted gravel pit that's filled with water in Dallas County, about a 100-mile drive from Waco. Her remains are found by a fisherman about a quarter-mile away from where her car was found stuck in the mud.
We do have a positive identification on the body. It is that of Melissa N. Northrup.
The one clue that this is the work of Kenneth McDuff is that her ankles and hands are bound with shoelaces.
McDuff had certain traits and certain patterns, and one of them was he liked to bind his victims' hands and feet if he could, and he often used their shoestrings. He would literally get their shoes off, pull the string out, and use it.
It was a sense of relief that we finally found her, we finally knew what happened, and gave us more evidence to use against McDuff if and when we could catch him.
At this point, you have the detailed statement of Hank Worley, you have the body of Melissa Northrup, you have her car, and you have Kenneth McDuff's car. And they know that both victims have been tied up with shoelaces, but you're still missing two big pieces. You're missing the body of Colleen Reed. You're missing Kenneth McDuff.
I mean, the truth is, we didn't have a clue where it was. And the Marshal Service had a notion to put it on national television.
I contacted America's Most Wanted.
The families of those murder victims pray for the capture of McDuff. Tonight, your call could end the manhunt.
America's Most Wanted aired that Friday. We got a call Monday from Kansas City Police that they think McDuff may be in that area.
The Kansas City Police Department had gotten information from a viewer that had watched America's Most Wanted show. Hey, this is the guy that's wanted out of Texas for these killings.
A witness who called, who said he thought he was working with McDuff in Kansas City.
McDuff had gotten arrested up there on a prostitution sting, but they didn't take him into custody. They just wrote him a bench ticket and put his thumbprint on the ticket. I had the prints from the prison, and we compared them, and it was obvious that it was him.
We couldn't believe it. After all this manhunt, finally going to get this low-down scum off the street.
The Kansas City Police find out that he was working on a garbage truck. So they set up a sting operation involving a checkpoint and stopped the truck under the pretense that they were doing a safety inspection on the vehicle, and that's when they identified and arrested him.
McDuff denied everything and then finally said, I want to talk to an attorney.
After he was caught, the federal judge ordered him removed to Waco, Texas, and the U.S. Marshals provided their fastest jet. So McDuff was handcuffed, and he was placed in the jet opposite from me and a couple seats back. I think about being on the airplane with that guy. God, he probably should have been duct taped to the seat.
We got back to the airport here, Waco, put him in the sheriff's unit, and we bust every red light coming through town. We get to the federal courthouse, and this big crowd of family and loved ones, people that have been his victims.
The word had gotten out. There was a groundswell of outrage.
By this time, everybody in Texas knew what a monster this guy was.
And they're screaming and cursing him. They're good people that have lost loved ones. And here we are having to protect this serial killer.
After finding Melissa Northrup's body and then arresting Kenneth McDuff, he is charged with the capital murder of Colleen Reed and the capital murder of Melissa Northrup. But Colleen Reed's body still has not been found, and Kenneth McDuff is not talking. Prosecuting a murder without a body is difficult because you have to prove that they're dead, and you like to be able to prove the cause of death too, and you can't do that when you don't have a body. For all those reasons, the state decided to move forward with the prosecution of Melissa Northrup's case first.
No comment.
McDuff had escaped the death penalty before because the Supreme Court threw it out. By this time, Texas had reinstated the death penalty. We felt that we needed to get him the death penalty so that he could never commit any more crimes like this. It was going to be difficult. It was not a slam dunk. We didn't have anybody that was an actual eyewitness to the murder of Melissa Northrup.
The prosecution case was the definition of circumstantial. I mean, they had to take a bunch of unrelated facts and put them all together, and there just really wasn't, in our mind, any conclusive evidence that he committed the murder. I think they were relying more on his past and his history than facts. To say it was a high-profile case is probably an understatement.
Name of the charges against you?
There was so much publicity that I don't think you would ever found 12 people who could have impartially judged it.
So the judge decided it would be better to have a change of venue and decided to send the case to Houston.
Is there a place you think you would get a fair trial?
I was talking about that.
Do you think you're a monster?
Judge Bob Burdett was assigned to oversee the case. And I'm very familiar with how he controls his courtroom. He doesn't put up with any nonsense. You better make sure your T's are crossed and your I's are dotted if you're trying a case in front of him.
When you have a crime and you don't have any witnesses to prove that the person did the crime, the law allows the state to present other very similar offenses, extraneous offenses as they're called.
Typically, you don't try one murder by bringing in another murder, but when you're trying to establish that the same person committed the crime, sometimes it can be allowed in for limited purposes only. There was a hearing in this trial where Judge Bob Burdett had to rule on whether or not he was going to allow into evidence the extraneous other murder of Colleen Reed in the trial of Melissa Northrup.
It's only in pretty limited situations that they're allowed to go into facts of another case, and this was one of them. It was basically two murder cases wrapped up into one.
Hank Worley was the key to breaking the case.
Worley's testimony showed how MacDuff had accomplished the murder of Colleen Reed and the similarities between her kidnapping and murder and the Northrup kidnapping and murder.
Our cross-examination of Worley was really focused on he was just as potentially liable and as guilty as MacDuff and could be facing the same charge and the same punishment. So he had every reason in the world to paint things in a light that got him out of a jam. I didn't think Worley was even close to a credible witness.
I think the testimony was extremely unsettling to the jury.
Do you plan on taking the stand?
Oh, yes, I'll take the stand.
Are you positive?
It was definitely against our advice to take the stand, but it was something that he wanted to do.
The case they have isn't strong. They fear they're getting an acquittal verdict on the case as it stands right now.
Why would Kenneth McDuff take the stand when he hasn't, at that point, talked to law enforcement about anything?
I think that MacDuff thought that he could go sell a story to the jury and convince them that he was innocent.
During the trial of Melissa Northrup, Kenneth McDuff says he wants to take the witness stand. His lawyers advise him not to do that, of course, because if he testifies, then he is going to be cross-examined on anything the prosecutors want to ask him about. He does not take the advice of his lawyers, and he takes the witness stand. From the prosecutor's point of view, I'm sure they were very excited that Kenneth McDuff didn't listen to his lawyers.
MacDuff testified that he was not in Waco when Melissa Northrup was killed. He said he decided to leave Waco behind, to try to shed his past and to get a new life, and gave all these details of his journey. And I'm sure he thought with that long story that he had impressed the jury, but I didn't think he'd accomplish what he intended.
When Kenneth McDuff takes the witness stand, not only can the prosecutors cross-examine him about Melissa Northrup, the victim he's being tried for, they can ask him about Colleen Reed and other crimes that the jury would not have known about when they were just deliberating his guilt.
John Segrist did the cross-examination, and he, of course, questioned MacDuff about the murder in 1966. The jury had not heard anything about that murder previously, and also our evidence about the murder of Colleen Reed. That was something that obviously was helpful to us.
The evidence shows that this defendant is every person's nightmare.
The jury was out about 3 hours.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Kenneth Allen McDuff, guilty of capital murder as charged in the indictment.
Kenneth McDuff is found guilty of murdering Melissa Northrup, and he is sentenced to die by lethal injection.
The whole time the judge was talking, I was crying, and it was just really a load lifted.
Kenneth Allen McDuff is the only person that's been on death row twice in Texas.
Can you tell me how you're feeling?
That's why I'm guilty.
Any thoughts on what's next?
I guess I'm gonna die, apparently. We all do, you know.
Will today's decision bring your family closure?
never be a closure. To me, my daughter's not resting in peace until this man is dead. Because I don't want him to be able to do this ever again.
1 year later, and the case against McDuff for the murder of Colleen Reed was tried without a body.
The jury found him guilty and then also assessed a death penalty.
It's a relief, you know. She died a horrible death, but she lived a good life.
It was like another nail in the coffin. He's not getting out of this one. You're going to pay now. And there's some pieces of me that I didn't know exist. The hate that I had for that guy. And the things that I dreamed that I could do to that guy. It's just like, but God help me.
The last chapter will always be reserved for bringing Colleen home. So young.
Kenneth McDuff is finally convicted for the capital murder of Colleen Reed and the capital murder of Melissa Northrup. But people still had a lot of questions. Where's Colleen Reed's body? Has he killed anybody else, anywhere else in the country? And how in the world did he get released from prison in the first place?
After he had been found guilty of capital murder of Melissa Northrup and Colleen Reed, I started investigating the parole board. The state was under pressure for prison auditing by a federal judge. So in 1989, the parole board are told, start releasing 150 inmates a day, 7 days a week. It started off with your hot check rioters and property crimes, but before long, they were at the bottom of the barrel. James Granberry, as parole board chairman, was finding inmates' families who had money.
The investigation revealed that he would actually shake them down. They love their kids. They don't want them in prison, and they'll do anything to get them out.
Kenneth McDuff walked out of a maximum security prison on parole under a cloud of corruption that no one realized at the time.
There was no way to know how many violent criminals got out this way. I was appalled.
Texas is supposed to be this tough place with all these death penalties. Well, heck, they were letting everybody out. It was a travesty, and it was an embarrassment, and it was wrong, and people were dying in the streets because of it.
You sure don't think that a serial killer is going to be one of the ones that slips through the cracks. But that's what happened. And look what happened in the free world, where he got to continue to prey on women, and he killed 2 more people. And that's all the fault of the system.
With McDuff, the justice system did its work. They put him back on death row. But to close those cases for the families, recovering the victims is the priority. So, as he was getting close to the execution set date, I started going down to death row. I would spend 4 or 5 hours with him, talking to him. The most chilling thing that he said to me was about Colleen Reed. He said, I took her out of the vehicle, and she got away from me, and she ran and fell down. He said, if she had just gotten up and ran away, I could have never caught her. But she didn't. She just laid there and cried. I mean, you talk about the hair standing up on the back of your neck.
I needed to know where Colleen Reed was. And I needed him to tell me the truth. But he had no motivation to do so. And we had good information that he was going to be executed in just 2 or 3 weeks. Time was running out.
Seven years after Colleen Reed goes missing, they still can't find her body. Her family is in pain, and Kenneth McDuff is sitting on death row not saying a word. A few weeks before his execution date, a window of opportunity cracks open.
McDuff comes in and he's complaining about a toothache. I say to him, look, you're a man of your word. I'm a man of my word. Here's what's going to happen. The dentist will be here tomorrow. I'll put you first on that list. You'll be going in, getting that tooth fixed. And once you get that tooth fixed, you come in and you sit in that chair and you give us what we need. And that's what he did. He drew out the map for Colleen's location, where he buried her.
This is where McDuff brought Colleen Reed after he tortured her and beat her to death. It brings back so many bad memories and feelings. Just knowing what happened to Colleen. Went right out there, about where that 3rd tree is. Had a tractor with a blade, then we had a bulldozer with a blade, still couldn't find her.
When the blade went by, the bulldozer and scraped, I saw something. I moved away some dirt. And there was Colleen's skull.
We'd found her. Representatives of the medical examiner's office put her in the back seat of their car and took her back to Austin. They weren't going to put her in the trunk. You know, she was going to ride with them in the car.
We had information that thankfully led us to some remains a while ago. They would be the remains of Colleen. What we heard was done to her was etched in our minds, and I cannot, you just don't understand that. We've done this for years. We don't understand how one human being could do that to a human being.
This case, McDuff, coupled with the corruption side of it, changed the way the criminal justice system operated in Texas. It was a huge scandal.
It led to the largest expenditure of taxpayer money for prison construction in history.
There was the first overhaul of the criminal justice code in over a quarter of a century. Now we have what's called a series of the McDuff laws. He became the poster boy for change in the criminal justice system.
McDuff was executed tonight by the state of Texas. He was pronounced dead at 6:26.
I know that I never have to walk into another courtroom and look at him again. This part is over.
Colleen's memory has lived on. There are people that still love her and miss her. There's an endowment at LSU, her school, Colleen Reed Opportunity Fund, and so her name will be carried on with that scholarship. So
it's nice for us to say that ultimately they got justice. You know what? If I was Colleen Reed or Melissa Northrup's family, I would tell you I don't want to hear any talk about justice because all I feel is pain. Because a monster like Kenneth McDuff roamed the streets of Texas, and a lot of that roaming happened because the system failed Colleen and Melissa, and it failed all of us. And that is a horrible tragedy that should never have happened.
Please, what's the emergency?
Someone's been murdered down the alleyway with a hammer.
Right, Delta. On quick.
When a killer strikes.
He died at 8:15 this morning. So we've now got a murder investigation.
Catching the suspect falls to a specialist team of detectives.
Wow, it's quite shocking.
His last moments were in his room.
First, they must hunt for clues.
What's that? Could be the murder.
There are messages of interest. I've killed someone.
He was just possessed. He was a man on a mission.
Then,
there we go.
Identify a suspect.
That is spot on.
And bring them in.
There you are. What do you want to let me out to? Get on the phone now. Does that send the phone? Back up for you, please. You're under arrest for murder. Okay.
Next, they must question the suspect to build the case.
Explain to me what's going on.
Separate the truth from the lies.
He said there wasn't a plan. Where were you heading then? How do I know?
And deliver justice for the victims and their families.
They are two really dangerous people. The streets will be a much safer place without them.
This time,
the station fully responded after receiving
a brutal attack on a man in his own home.
There's not all of a flat, there's female inside.
Turns into a murder investigation.
It's quite like a frenzied attack.
He's clearly doing a kicking motion.
There's no disproving that. It's evidence.
And sees detectives having to investigate multiple suspects.
I lost a friend and now getting accused of being murder. It's disgusting. Can you talk to me? What? It's not a murder, it's not one thing. And it's bleeding, it's having to be looked up. He said he was going to put us down.
Is the attacker still nearby?
I don't know. Please, can you just get an ambulance?
We are ready to help, okay, don't worry.
With reports of a knuckle duster involved and a suspect at large, police are deployed as well as paramedics.
Trying to get 911 back to report an assault on the home. Is he bleeding seriously, Tom?
His eyes, he's bleeding all over. What do you want? Just give you a please, please. Stop it, please.
I'll pick up the class on your leg. Listen carefully, I need to make sure with his chest compressions so we can help him before the ambulance gets there. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's good, let's get into that rate. Rick.
A 49-year-old man has serious head injuries.
Please have this currently unconscious with his breathing. There's blood all over the flat. There's a female inside him. Trying to help you, fella. Alright.
As responders battle to stabilise the patient,
I just got in there. I don't know what's happened.
police focus on the woman who made the 999 call to the ambulance service.
Who is it? That's John Hutty.
John Hutty. Is anyone else in the address?
No, just me.
Olivia,
No, just a friend.
are you aware of what's happened?
No, not aware at all.
You came round.
Because I always come round.
Just off chance you just came round.
Well, no, I've already been here and I popped out and come back.
Okay. Who else has been here? Do you know?
I don't know, I'm not too sure.
It's Hutty shops that is that his fault. I'm saying stop this mission. Fully unresponsive. Active procedure.
It looks like he's got injury to the back. It looks like there's been blood pouring around the back of the floor. There's not very obvious at the moment that I've seen.
A sergeant has arrived to manage the active crime scene on the first floor of the tower block.
Just until I get upstairs and find out what's going on, you know, just to stand by. I just don't want everyone up there contaminating the scene if we need to keep it sterile.
Officers need to establish if there's anyone else involved.
What we've got now, there's male and female that are present now. Female's innocent, she's been here earlier on, she's come home for an hour, she's come back and she's found him. Done some lights and found him unconscious on the floor with looking like he's been hit on the head. Alright, would you be willing to provide a statement for us?
I don't know, I found him like that. I hadn't seen nothing there. I don't know.
Can she give any indication who would have done this?
She said she's got no idea. There's no mention of anybody else. So, I can ask her as suspect out. So, who's interested again?
Alright, what?
At the minute, I'm not sure. Yeah, you just keep us there. Yeah. For the time being, okay.
Right.
Just while we sort of establish exactly what's going on, alright?
But I don't know what's going on. Can I go again, please?
There's some break-ins. So you were there earlier tonight?
Yeah.
Yeah. Why was you here? So, yeah. What are you listening to? We've got him there.
I went out. Didn't matter about me.
Doesn't matter.
Who is she to this person?
Just a friend.
I think let's bring her in. We need to find out who she is, and if nothing, we can treat her as a significant witness, can't we?
Hello.
Right.
This moment in time, you're under arrest on suspicion of Section 8 assault.
I
You
don't
don't have
do
to say
nothing.
anything, didn't have a defence if you're not mentioning one question, something which you later rely in court.
Why am I getting arrested for this? I ain't done it.
The officers just told you you're at this scene where
Yes, I know, but I found him like that and I rang the ambulance straight away. It's not me.
Just say it to mate.
Why would I do that?
We wait here.
No, I know, but I wouldn't hear either. I rang the ambulance, you know.
I know, but we need to be certain of that, don't we?
Yeah, but no, because I've not done something. That's what it is.
That's his.
Yeah, it is.
We're gonna want nothing, aren't we?
Yeah.
With the victim's wallet found on the woman, she's taken into custody.
Absolute take the piss thing.
now following the mail to the hospital. We've got this one being mailed to our GPH. Can you make CSI aware of them? We've got the scene secured until they arrive.
Ambulance service, patient breathing.
It's on the stair, it's not moving. It's really moving across the stairs.
In Hull, a man is in a coma with head injuries after being assaulted in his own home by what's believed to be a weapon.
There's blood all over the flat and there's a female inside.
You're under arrest on suspicion of Section 18 assault. You don't have to say anything.
A 27-year-old woman who called the ambulance has been arrested on suspicion of GBH. Now, police are in a race against the clock to establish what happened in the flat.
Absolute taste of piss thing.
The case has been escalated to the major crime team.
Morning, everyone.
Heading the investigation is Detective Chief Inspector Ben Robinson.
So, victim is Jonathan Hutty. Call comes in from our suspect, Lauren Roundhill. She's reporting that she's been out, come back to the flat and found Jonathan face down. It looks like he's been assaulted. Police turn up. She gives a strange account and is trying to get away, so she's arrested for assault. At this moment in time, our victim is still alive. And it's been described as an irreversible brain injury. And it is anticipated that he's not going to recover.
We're just making phone calls to the hospital now, so imminently we'll get an update on his condition.
In the background of the call to the ambulance, a male voice says he's been hit with a knuckle duster.
At the hospital, they comment on any other injuries that's visible. I'm just thinking about the knuckle duster as a weapon.
No, but he's been photographed and you can see he's got a cut to his head here.
It sounds very much like we'll have a post-mortem to come.
An update come through, literally just come through. He died at 8:50 this morning. Family have just arrived. It's literally just happened.
Yeah.
8:50.
8:50.
Okay. So we've now got a murder investigation. We've just had the news, literally just at the back end of that meeting with the forensic team, that our victim's passed away now. Hi there, it's Ben Robinson from Homicide Police. I need to speak to a coroner's office to discuss a Home Office post-mortem. The investigation changes now. It was an investigation into assault. It's now a murder investigation. Cheers. Bye. I can't imagine how it feels to the family. I'm more determined than ever to get the evidence to convict those that have done this.
Detective Constables Simon Holmes and Shelley Fuller are en route to interview the suspect.
We are going to interview Lauren Roundhill at Clough Road Police Station. When she's been booked into custody at Clough Road, she stated that at this stage she doesn't want a solicitor. She may realise the gravity of this and decide that she does want a solicitor, but our strategy really is to get there as soon as possible to get into interview and see what she wants to tell us.
We've got 3 rats at a time. Let's get this officer down here.
No.
You got any particular reason why you don't want a solicitor?
Looks over this way. This way, Lauren. Thanks very much. This side, Lauren, for you, if that's alright.
So to summarise, we're investigating the murder of Mr. John Hutty. At that time, you're under arrest for an offence of assault, serious assault, Section 18, against John Hutty.
Yeah.
Recently, John has passed away, so it's now a murder inquiry. Tell me everything you can.
Well, I was with Hutty. I was with Hutty and Mike was at Hutty's and was having a drink and smoking crack. And then his girlfriend and Smalley come right after they'd been to the pub.
Okay, so quite a lot there, so I probably need to go back. How do you know this lad Smalley? And how long have you known him?
I've only ever known of him. Ian Smalley, working from Branzo, where he's a well-known kid, isn't he?
Right, okay. Ian Smalley and girlfriend.
Yeah, I don't even know her first name, it's the first time I've met her.
Right, so you was with Hutty at Hutty's, having red wine and crack. Then you said his girlfriend and Smalley, and Gav, came after the pub.
Yeah.
Gav Leaning, we're talking about that week.
Smalley and Gav went because I was going to score, so that left me, John, and girlfriend in the flat. It was taking ages, so me and girlfriend went to go find them. Flat's just leaving up there, get the flat on his own.
Did John have any injuries at that point?
No.
Tell me what he was doing when you left.
It's on the city.
Right.
Until he had the news come. I've gone to the lift, and the lift was on the I thought it was both of them. So I said, oh, well, I'll walk upstairs. You know, so I've walked up the stairs. I've gone into Gav's, nobody was in Gav's. As I was coming out of Gav's, Gav ran past me and said, I think, oh, he's been knocked out, he's been knocked out.
You best go downstairs, it's
I think, oh, he's been knocked out, he's been knocked out. Right, so I've literally ran down the stairs. So when I've walked in, there's Hutty laid on the floor, face down, and Smalley was still in the flat.
Okay, so this bit's important.
I've ran in, and Hutty was laid face down on the floor, because his face was just covered in blood. William Smalley stood over him, top of the three-seater. Sorry, who was stood over him? Ian Smalley.
Ian Smalley stood over him and
I was just sat on the sofa like, that would happen. I think it's disgusting.
Tell me what Ian Smalley said.
Oh, he's nicked my bank card.
He's nicked my bank card?
Yeah.
Describe his behaviour.
I don't know, it still come across as being aggressive.
Aggressive? Right, gotcha. Did say anything?
Don't ring ambulance, I've got his head.
Don't ring ambulance?
Yeah.
Did he say
It'll be alright.
To you?
Yeah. Once I am, I rang an ambulance and then eventually.
Did you see anybody assault John while you were there?
No.
No.
I wouldn't have let that happen.
Okay. Did anybody else say who'd assaulted John? Did anybody say what happened?
No.
Did you ask?
No, I was panicking so much.
At any point in the flat, did you see any of these people with a knuckle duster?
No.
Do you know if any of them ever carry a knuckle duster?
No.
Have you ever seen any of them with a knuckle duster before?
Like I say, I'm not that thingy with them, I'm not involved with them, I'm not usually involved in any of this kind of stuff. I made it to 26 without getting arrested, and now I'm involved in this.
So you was not in the flat when Hutty was assaulted?
No.
100%?
100%.
After you found him with the injuries, did you leave him at any point?
No, I didn't leave him not once.
Okay.
I stayed on the phone to an ambulance.
Alright. And we appreciate that, you've done the right thing.
I'm the one who helped him.
Yeah.
God, I'm upset I've lost a friend and all. And now getting accused of his murder, it's disgusting.
I can see you're upset.
But yeah, I'm upset because I feel like you're actually accusing me.
We're not, Lauren, we're not accusing you at all.
Our job, Lauren, to
yeah, I want
totally
you to get
impartial.
justice. I want you to get justice for what he don't deserve this. Nobody deserves it. It's disgusting.
As soon as we've told our bosses what you've said, then they'll make a decision and we'll come back and tell you as soon as we know anything more. Alright.
Right. Before we start the recording, Lauren, is there anything else you want to tell us?
No, I've told you the full truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Right.
Okay.
The detectives feed back Lauren Roundell's account, naming 3 alternative suspects.
Hello, Ben Robinson speaking.
We have just interviewed Lauren for the last hour and a quarter, and she spoke at length without a solicitor boss.
Okay.
She said she was with Hutty at the day it happened. Some people, she says, Ian Smalley, Gavin Leaning, and his girlfriend, whose name she does not know, come back to Hutty's flat after the pub. She said Smalley, Gav, went to score. Her and girlfriend left to go look for the others, leaving Hutty on his own in the flat. She walks up the stairs to Gav's flat on the 12th floor. As she comes out of Gav's flat, Gav runs past her towards his flat, saying, "You best go downstairs, I've hit Hutty, he's been knocked out." She runs downstairs. She then sees Hutty laid face down on the floor in the living room. Hutty is unconscious, not moving, and his face was covered in blood. Ian Smalley stood over Hutty and is sat on the sofa like nothing's happened. Smalley said, "He's nicked my bank card." She then says, as soon as she puts the ambulance on speakerphone and Smalley leave, she says, "I did not see any assault at all. I wouldn't have let this happen. I can't tell you who assaulted him because I didn't see it," and that's it.
Brilliant. In my humble opinion, she's given us a full account. We just need to do some work to confirm or deny that. Right, okay. Cheers for the update. Cheers, bye. So we've now got Ian Smalley, Gavin Leaning in their flat.
In the address. One of them is potentially then the one in the background of the 999 call.
So that'll be some actions to go and speak to them.
No second interview then, and we'll bail there.
Lauren, you're getting bailed now. Do you want to grab your stuff?
Having provided 3 names for detectives to investigate
This way.
and a possible motive regarding a bank card, Lauren is released on bail.
Lauren is adamant that she wasn't there when he was assaulted. But is she telling us the truth?
Thank you so
This way, Lauren.
It would be a bit naive to take her word for the fact that she wasn't there at the time of the assault. We need to be absolutely sure of that.
So you've been bailed. We need to check what you're telling us is the truth.
Yeah.
Okay.
The cynic would say that at the material time, why is she saying she was somewhere else? So we're going to need to try and bottom that as best we can.
Yeah,
Take care. Cheers.
In Hull, the major crime team are investigating the murder of Jonathan Harty. He was attacked at his address with what's suspected to be a knuckle duster.
Female's been missing, but she's unconscious on the floor, looking like he's been hit over the head.
This way.
Lauren Roundell was arrested, but denied being responsible.
Everyone welted. Now getting accused of his murder. It's disgusting.
And named 3 other suspects.
We've now got Ian Smalley, Gavin Leaning in their flat.
In the address.
So that'll be some actions to go and speak to them.
Detective Chief Inspector Ben Robinson and Detective Inspector Sarah Petro are focusing on the suspect reported to have been stood over Jonathan Hutty after being attacked. 53-year-old Ian Smalley was arrested 18 hours after the assault for an unrelated incident.
We are going back to it now.
So this is the incident that was reported and that he was arrested at this address.
What have you arrested for? Because he's dressed as a disturbance. You're passed out on the floor. She's crying. Something like that. So I don't know what's wrong.
Seems like very intoxicated.
He does, yeah. You can see how aggressive he is at the minute.
No, your father.
No.
No.
No one is aware.
I'm accused of a back hospital.
Back hospital, yeah.
What's that? The knuckle duster?
Could be the murder weapon because there's been some mention in the 999 call of he's been hit with a knuckle duster.
I can't see any traces of blood or anything like that.
The knuckle duster will need to get sent off for forensic testing to see if there's any DNA, blood on it.
Yeah.
You're under arrest for assault, criminal damage, possession of offensive weapon, alright? Yeah.
Ian Smalley has a total of 32 convictions for 96 offences. They include theft, assault, drugs, and a few offensive weapon convictions as well.
Think you'll be alright now, Carl? Yeah, go on.
It's assault, violence offences, so it shows who that person is really.
Unusually, Ian Smalley is not the only suspect already detained for other offences.
So this is Leaning being booked into custody.
Since the assault, detectives have learned 51-year-old Gavin Leaning has also been detained.
At this time, Gavin Leaning's in custody for burglary offences which are not connected with the investigation that we have ongoing. Gavin Leaning has a total of 26 previous convictions for a total of 57 offences, and they include theft offences, assault, and 1 for drugs. See his hat? Look at it compared to...
Yeah.
That is really swollen.
Do you have any injuries?
If he's just been involved in an assault, that's pretty damning.
Yeah. And for it to look that swollen, it looks like it would be a significant punch with it, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Having broken their licence conditions, both Gavin Leaning and Ian Smalley have been recalled to prison.
Two of the prime suspects at this moment in time are actually in prison for other offences, so that means the consideration of the threat they pose to the public isn't there for me at that moment in time.
A third male suspect has also been arrested and questioned.
Tell me what you know about Jonathan Hutton.
No comment.
You met him before?
No comment.
Is it a friend of yours?
No comment.
Is it a friend of a friend?
No comment.
Has no previous convictions. He has been found not guilty of a serious assault previously.
Has there been some kind of argument?
No comment.
Has he been hit with something?
No comment.
Doesn't mean someone's not offended in the past. That can potentially be either we've been unsuccessful in our investigations or people haven't come forward.
So this is Ian Smalling. What can you tell me about him?
No comment.
And the other chap is Gavin Laney. What can you tell me about him?
No comment. First one go on.
With no new information provided by the third suspect, he's been bailed pending further inquiries.
So what my strategy is for this investigation is now building up all that evidence against the individuals. When we are over the threshold for charge, we will arrest those people, bring them back into custody, put a wealth of evidence to them, and then hopefully look for a charging decision against them.
To build a case against the three suspects, detectives must link them to the crime scene.
We're going to the scene of where the incident took place now. We're going to review what the blood looks like, see if we need to get a scientist down to interpret. The way the blood's maybe distributed in the scene can tell you about something that's happened and why the victims died. Are we putting suits on?
We'll put them on inside.
Okay.
Just looking to see whether there's any forensic opportunities that we can get from here that can put the suspects in the flat, and whether there's anything there that we can potentially bring any specialists to assist us in the investigation. That looks bloody to me.
Yeah.
That could be footwear marks. So it looks like whatever's happened has probably happened in the lounge, and then they've trailed blood out, potentially on the shoes.
It's like flicks there.
Yeah.
It's cast off there
There's
as well.
cast off here. There's tails. Does that mean he's maybe been in one position assaulted and then he's moved? We're probably better off getting a biologist to comment on that. We'll photograph it as best as we can now, and then after the post-mortem we might have an idea if there's a recommendation he might have been hit with something or weapons been used.
So the suggestion is the knuckle duster.
Right. Let's get out of Glaze so we can take some pictures.
On the left-hand side is a small patch of blood with what it looks like a little bit of cast off from. Then in the middle of the room is the main one with colours coming across there. And then down the chair there's some blood, and then there's some pooling blood on the floor as well. There's a lot of information contained within that front room of the flat. We need to now get a specialist to tell us what it needs.
The team must also look for other sources of evidence that can support the investigation.
When this lift door opens, there's a camera in the far right corner.
Literally, if someone comes out of the lift,
Straight into here.
straight in there.
There's some key footage that's going to come from that camera.
Hopefully, we've struck lucky and we will see them or somebody getting out and going there.
As well as securing CCTV footage,
Padstow Close, I'm presuming that's here.
detectives conduct door-to-door inquiries to explore potential leads.
So are you aware of the incident that happened at Padstow
I
House?
swear there was an incident, but I don't know any details. I've heard somebody was either seriously injured or killed.
Okay, has anybody spoken to you directly from the flats at all that would know? No. Okay.
I mean, I know, I've worked here 30 years, the flats has always been a place where there's been a certain element of drug dealing. So.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the people that we have spoken to, they've been lovely, but they don't know anything about the incident. One of the chaps I spoke to said he'd heard a female screaming on the night, but he presumed that was when the police came and arrested her, so nothing to do with the actual incident, unfortunately. I don't think you can be disheartened by that. There could be people that can tell us an awful lot.
Right, we'll just get suited up.
Forensic work is continuing at the crime scene.
Marks have been photographed by the CSI. What we'll attempt to do with the chemical treatment is to get more definition. Just be careful on the stepping plates.
They're tasked with identifying and enhancing footprints that could be linked to the suspects.
Basically, we've got this area here, and then on the way out, it looks, potentially like a heel or a circular pattern. Well, hopefully we can enhance that. The acid chemistry clearly defines the structure and the pattern of the very, very fine particles of blood which have been potentially on a suspect's shoe. Sometimes, in an area you think there isn't a mark there, you suddenly get a mark. Oh yeah, there you go. So that's good enhancement. In fact, there's even a little bit in there as well. Oh, look at that. It's the whole foot. There's clearly at least 3 types of footwear marked. The block patterns could be medical boots foot. There's certainly a possible trainer. It'll be a footwear expert. They'll be able to identify those.
With the crime scene work continuing, the team assess progress on the investigation's witnesses.
So we'll have this sort of catch-up briefing where we are, any developments that have taken place. If I go across to you, Steph.
Lauren Roundhill, as you know, was interviewed by Simon and Shoei. She gave a full account of our murder at the pub. She's confirmed that Gav, girlfriend, were in the pub and they came in around 10:45 to 11 o'clock. So that corroborates what Lauren Roundhill is saying, that a group of them did go to the pub.
Excellent. We're bringing together the sort of timeline in relation to those and nailing them down to positions, aren't we now? So that's good.
In her custody interview, Lauren Roundhill stated Ian Smalley's missing bank card could be a motive for the assault.
Eleanor and Emma have been doing a real good job with the house-to-house.
Yeah, so we've done all of the flats. The general thing is that a lot of people in there are saying we keep ourselves to ourselves. They have heard rumours about things that have been going on. Apparently, Gav leaned in, he told Smalley that it was John that pinched the bank card. 3 went in and attacked him with knuckle dusters.
I've been in touch with HMP Lincoln today, where Smalley is. I've got a definitive list from what property they've got in safe storage for him, and it does include a mobile phone.
That's really, really good. Just while we're on the subject of prisons, this morning I got an email leaning. He's coming out in 17 days' time.
Ideally, we don't want him walking out of prison, do we?
No, we don't, because then we lose complete control of him and the threats he may pose.
Yeah.
Because no doubt they'll be going around, he'll go around and speak to people. Have that date as a point to bring them in, to try and nail down undeniable evidence, i.e. CCTV, showing them going in and around the flat, and then hopefully the forensics.
Yeah. The other significant event yesterday was obviously the post-mortem of Mr. Hutty, which Sarah went to.
In relation to the injuries, he had bilateral black eyes. His nose was broken on arrival at the hospital. The lower left lung was collapsed on admission. The MRI showed lots of small bleeds, and there was severe brain injury, most likely due to an assault. He said that those small bleeds would be consistent with an excessive force, probably from the foot. So nothing really that was not expected.
So we've just had the update from the post-mortem. The injuries that the victim has received have resulted in a catastrophic brain injury, which has then caused him to die. No comment was made on if the injuries were consistent with a knuckle duster. Kicks and punches were mentioned. His brain will have to be sent away, so a specialist in that area can then provide that finding. Hopefully that's not going to delay a charging decision, because that just means it's longer for the family.
With an expected delay on more medical evidence and crime scene forensics yet to be confirmed. So far, only Lauren Roundhill's account places the suspects at the crime scene. The team must now focus on possible digital evidence.
My role is an exhibits and disclosure officer. When any investigation happens, we retrieve the exhibit to build up the case.
Ian Smalley's phone was seized when he was recalled to prison.
The suspect's telephones need to be sent off for DFU, which is a digital examination of the phone.
piece of evidence. This will be sent to DFU, and what we'll hopefully get back from that is any admissions, telephone conversations and text messages, and anything that could link these people towards the crime.
At the Digital Media Unit, investigators are trawling through hours of CCTV from the block of flats where the attack took place.
Only got back from about this way.
Does it sound right?
No, it sounds okay.
Adding to the challenge, the CCTV timing appears inaccurate.
It's a work in progress.
So he's Ian Smallwood. And the guy with the grey hair is Gavin Leanin. Ian Smallwood, he's really wound up about something.
Yeah.
We don't know what floor it is. Because it's definitely not Hutty's floor, because that's not his flat.
No. Imagine Smalley's going like that outside.
I know.
He's clearly doing a kicking motion.
And when he comes into the lifts, he's sort of giving it like a bit of like head like movement, like he's been doing something.
Could this footage show the three suspects immediately after the attack?
This is the first bit I've seen. This is just as far as we've got in it.
We have got all the cameras, I just haven't processed them properly yet.
Thank you for showing that.
Examination of the crucial footage will continue.
Progress has jumped. There is a piece of CCTV. Ian Smalley's doing a kicking motion as part of that. Our pathologist has said our victim has been kicked during this assault, so that's really good evidence. We can see Ian Smalley and Gavin Leanin moving around at the same time, so it starts to go towards corroborating the account that's been given to us by Lauren Roundhill. With every day I think we're getting closer. We've still got a journey to go. We've still got lines of inquiry to get more and more evidence against these people.
Right, back to DFU with it.
The aim is to get the justice for Jonathan, and we'll continue to do that over the weeks.
In Hull, police are investigating the murder of Jonathan Hutty.
It's like flicks there. Cast off there as
Cast
well.
off here, does that mean he's been in one position assaulted and then he's moved?
Lauren Roundhill, arrested at the scene, has denied she was present during the attack and has named three suspects.
Dad ran past me and said, "You better go upstairs, have it up, mate." Hutty was laid face down on the floor. William Spanner stood over him from the three-seater.
Tell me what Ian Smalley said.
That's his blackguard.
Detectives have started to examine CCTV of what they believe are the suspects just after the attack.
Ian Smallwood, he's really wound up, sort of giving it a bit of head movement, like he's been doing something.
Now, they must work to corroborate Lauren Roundhill's account.
Just need a bit more before we can turn her into a witness potentially. A bit more proof.
I don't want to give you information to get you excited, but the caretaker has seen a bank card in a dream. I asked him.
Oh, yes.
I said, get CSI down there, we'll recover it properly.
Ian Smalley's bank card has been found right outside the flats where the assault took place.
From what we're being told by Lauren Roundhill, the motive is that Ian Smalley's bank card was stolen and that he then puts the blame onto our victim Jonathan. We found out he reported his bank card stolen, and we found his bank card near to the scene where this has happened. It all lines up, doesn't it? Today's a good day. Lovely.
As the card is sent off for forensics to examine further, DCI Ben Robinson is heading to meet Jonathan Hutty's next of kin.
We're off to meet the victim's family. One of the main reasons for me going is to offer my condolences and to explain how the investigation will progress from now onwards. And we had that full focus that this isn't just a job, this isn't just a name. This was a human being who was loved by his family.
We knew Jonathan had a drug habit, started early on in life, but he was always in denial. We were always there for support if he needed it, but he would never admit to his lifestyle. When we used to go visit Jonathan, if he had friends in his flat, they vacated. It's just a sad affair. Everybody's involved in this mad world of drugs, and I think when you're in that lifestyle, people feed off each other for their habits. The sad thing is, we've lost Jonathan over something that was trivial. As far as we know, it was over a bank card. It's an end of a life and a lovely person. But I also, at the same time, feel for the families of the people that have been accused. It affects everyone.
One of the suspects, Gavin Leaning, lives in the same tower block as the victim, Jonathan Hutty.
We're taking a search team to Gavin Leaning's home address, Padstow House. So we know that we've recovered trainers and joggers similar to what's in the CCTV, but the T-shirt's still outstanding.
As well as further clothes, they're also looking for other potential weapons.
We recovered the knuckle duster from Ian Smalley, and forensically it's been examined and it's a neutral finding, which basically means they've not found anything to link it to the assault. It might be that it's not the knuckle duster, so best outcome from today for the investigation will be to find a knuckle duster with blood on it in that address.
Conducting the inspection is the specialist search team, Operation Kinetic.
We're going in at Frankton.
It kind of matches what we know about the fact that they live a chaotic lifestyle. We've had people kind of squatting, homeless people here, so I think it's going to take some time.
You don't want any drug paraphernalia or anything here?
No. The irony of a murder investigation with children's lullabies in the background. When you approach users, their days are never really the same. They associate with people who live that same sort of lifestyle. It is an addiction, and sadly, it quite often ends up with somebody losing their life.
It's close to finishing one room.
Yeah. So the markings on the wall are quite interesting because that ties in with a lot of the names that we've got during the investigations. We've also got Gavin Leaning, Lauren Roundhill, and it shows they were associating with each other, which ties in with the information we know so far.
It's made a little easier knowing that you can quickly feel the weight of an item and know that the knuckle duster's not in there. And likewise with the clothing, it's quite distinctive. This is all dark patterned, but we're looking for something that's white-ish. Are you happy with how we're doing it?
Yeah.
If you're happy, I'll keep you posted.
Thank you.
I think we have to be realistic about what we expected to come from the search. We don't know the true story behind the knuckle duster. We don't know if the one recovered from Smalley was the knuckle duster that was used and it's just been cleaned. And the fact that we didn't find a knuckle duster, it doesn't take us further, but it doesn't set us back.
Sarah King?
Hi Sarah, it's Ben Robinson.
DCI Ben Robinson is getting an update on the blood pattern specialist's findings from his crime scene manager.
Basically what she said, the leather armchair, the left arm of that chair is heavily coated in blood. And the blood on the floor, it's got movement in it and then there's a void in it. Right. So he's maybe been slumped in the chair and he's put his hand down into that wet blood, which has made that void in the middle.
Okay.
And then he's come to maybe move himself down to the beanbag before he's come to be where he is on the floor.
So maybe there's been like a first blow that's caused him to bleed and he sat down in the chair?
Yeah, potentially. With a patch of blood in front of the chair. He's probably been laid down on his front with his right side of his face down, and that blood's come from the injuries sustained on the right side of his face.
Okay.
The job's been made somewhat harder by the fact that so many people have been in while the blood's been wet. The blood near the skirting board. It's very much directional, so she can't really say what that tells us. The long cast-off blood that goes under the table, the only explanation she can come up with is that the paramedics have caused all of that in the course of medical treatment activity transfer.
There's a bit of me that's a bit disappointed, but we know there's quite a lot of blood in the scene, so we've just got to hope now that some of that has made its way onto the suspect's clothing.
Detectives have seized items from both Gavin Leaning and Ian Smalley when they were remanded for other offences, and taken the third suspect's clothing when he was interviewed.
This is the clothing from Leaning that we've retrieved.
Adele Robbins Glenton is collating the evidence to be forensically tested.
These are jogging bottoms. As you can see, these have got markings on them, but we need to establish have they got the victim's blood or any of the victim's bodily fluids on it. These are the shoes that belong to him. It's good when you've got a print like that, because if you've got footprints within the scene, then they would take pictures of those and cross-match them with the shoe that you have. These are Smalley's shoes, and these will be sent off to be tested to see if there's any splatters of blood from the victim. So that's to establish if he was actually wearing these shoes at the time of the incident. And as you can see on here, we actually do have markings. But what we have to establish is it bodily fluids, is it blood? And that's what we need to be sending it for. So this is from, it's a blue t-shirt and the grey tracksuit bottoms. Unfortunately on these ones you can't visually see any blood at the moment, so that's why they have to have an in-depth testing done. These are the victim's items that I'm going to be sending off today. We've got his trousers that he had on. We've got his shoes. And these are really key because we can already determine the fact that he's got blood on there. Is it his, or is it that he was fighting back and that he's then able to get the DNA or blood from one of the suspects? We've got every single item of clothing that he had on or was near the actual area as to where he was attacked. If we can find any of the suspects' DNA on there, what's it doing on there and why? This is how we're then to determine that those people are there. And it isn't just about the CCTV. It isn't just about people having an interview or witnesses coming forward. This is to establish exactly that they were there. There's no disproving that. It's evidence.
With the detectives dispatching the shoes and clothes for forensic testing, the focus turns to digital evidence, and there's been progress on Ian Smalley's phone.
We're looking at specific dates around the time of the incident. There are some messages of interest. He pinched my bank card, took £500 out, he deserved it, so fucking mate, no one does that to me. There's another one that says, I'm in shit, found out a bank card, ring me please, need to talk to you. And then there's another one that said, he ain't dead, you idiot, I just smashed him, ha. There's also other messages that indicate, why are you blanking me, I need you, I've killed someone. It's key evidence because it's so relevant to the offence, saying that he's killed somebody. So yeah, it's really important to our investigation, these messages.
The phone data provides another level of support. Why would you say I've killed someone if you're not responsible for that? Especially when we've got other witnesses which will put him stood over our victim Jonathan. I feel a lot more comfortable about the case that we're building. The next CCTV results will be crucial because they can provide us with so much evidence and so much for the suspects to have to account for. There's a lot of layers to it now, a lot of questions that these people have got to answer.
In Hull, the major crime team are investigating the brutal murder of 49-year-old Jonathan Hutty.
The MRI showed lots of small bleeds and there was severe brain injury, most likely due to an assault.
Lauren Roundell, arrested at the crime scene, maintains she is innocent.
You was not in the flat when Hutty was assaulted.
To check her account, police have been trawling through hours of CCTV footage.
We have got all the cameras and just haven't got a system yet.
It shows suspects Ian Smalley, Gavin Leaning, and a third man in what police believe to be the moments after the attack.
Ian Smalley doing a kicking motion.
A bit of head movement like he's been doing something.
Detectives have now completed their assembly of the CCTV timeline, allowing them to accurately track the victim and suspect's movements.
Cheers, Paul.
Hello.
I think you've got something for me.
Yes, I've trawled through the cameras looking for the victim, which is the last time we can actually see him alive and well. So I've got here 22:45. He's walking down the stairs from the first floor to the ground floor. Camera 16 shows him leaving the front entrance.
Okay.
I guess 22:48 comes back up through the front entrance. No signs of any injuries, there's no sign of any blood on the clothes, footwear, anything like that. And after this sighting, 22:48, that's the last time we see him.
That's the last time. I suppose anyone outside of the group that we know are connected to this will see him alive. For the investigation is really important because it can rule out anything that the suspects may say that there were nothing to do with it. He was already injured. We can put a time on when he wasn't. Lauren Roundell, she's saying he had no injuries when she left him as well, and that matches up, which all helps build the picture.
CCTV timeline has also prompted DI Sarah Petro to form a new theory.
Oh, that's how we knew from it. You know when they was in the lift with the bottle and they were doing the kick-in? Yeah. That we thought that was after the incident. I think that conversation in the lift is before the incident.
I think they're like egging each other up. So this is 2:05 on the system time. Real time it is 2:16:26. The actual time and the camera time, they're not always the same. So I wonder if this was them discussing what they're going to do. He's obviously like getting himself psyched.
Yeah.
Lauren's account is that she's gone to go find where they are. And we have Randall coming down from Hutties. They're trying to call the lift, but we know that it's in use by these three. And then it looks like they then take the stairs. The hypothesis with this is they're then on their way to Gavleen's flat, whilst Gavleen and Ian Smalley are making their way down to Huttie's flat. So it's just 2 minutes until we see Gavin leaning goes back up to his flat. Jonathan Huttie's flat is just opposite. He just looks like he's quite sombre at that moment, like his arms are folded, his body language is quite close, which would tie in if that assault has just taken place. So obviously he gets off, and if we believe Lauren Roundhill, that's when he says to her, but he's just been knocked out. And then what's quite interesting here is that the lift just stays on the first floor, so obviously outside Hutties. But when it closes, you can see kind of movement if anybody comes in or out in this little window. So there's like a bit of movement when that's which could tie with Roundhill going. Yeah. Roundhill's told us that she's gone into the address and she's found Smalley and still present, and then they leave. And you get to go past them.
Yeah.
And then we see Smalley and then on the stairwell. And then their movements shown on the CCTV in time of what she said.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. Because if it is during that time, like the time frame for it to happen is something like a minute and a half, which would suggest it's quite like a frenzied attack, just go in, do it, and then the ambulance being called. I feel better that I've got the timeline right in my mind, especially around the CCTV footage of them having the discussion in the lift, which I now believe to be them planning the attack.
If detectives can prove the assault was premeditated, it strengthens the case against the suspects.
We've got 3 people in a lift who appear to be agitated. Some of the activity in the lift could well be that they're almost rehearsing what they're going to do to our victim when they get into the flat. That puts a different spin on things. All 3 of them could be looking at a charge for murder, because they all knew when they were going down into the flat that there was going to be a violent assault committed.
The Digital Forensics Unit have concluded their examination of Lauren Roundell's seized phone.
Was there anything on her phone?
Hers ends, obviously, as she gets arrested.
Okay. There's nothing sort of that would suggest any planning?
No.
So her full account is supported by phone, data, CCTV?
Yeah.
And then, I know you can't cast any aspersions to someone's right to have a solicitor or not. The very fact you're arrested for murder and you choose not to have a solicitor, I think she, 100%, I'm comfortable now. She's going to become a witness.
With Lauren Roundell now formally eliminated from inquiries, will her next interview boost the case against the 3 suspects? In Humberside, detectives are investigating the murder of 49-year-old Jonathan Huttie.
Got issues. Is it that he was fighting back and being able to get the blood from one of the suspects?
3 suspects have been identified.
I wonder if this was them discussing what they're going to do. He's getting himself psyched.
Compelling digital evidence has been found on the phone of Ian Smalley.
Why are you blanking me? I knew I've killed someone.
Lauren Roundell, arrested at the scene, is no longer under suspicion.
So her full account is supported by CCTV. I'm comfortable now. She's going to become a witness.
Lauren Roundell has returned to provide her account in more detail.
So, Lauren, you've previously provided an account as a suspect, and now you're here voluntarily of your own free will to speak to us as a witness.
Yes.
So, in relation to Huttie, how do you know him?
I know him through drugs.
Okay.
One of my ex-partners, he introduced me to him. This was about a year ago. And we've just become good friends.
Yeah.
Like, I took to it, I could get along with him. It was really easy to get along with him. He was one of the most loveliest people ever. was all at Gav's.
All being
me, Hutty, Gav, Smalley. It's the first time I've ever spent time with Smalley this. I've seen him in the street and I've known of him, but I've never spent time with him. And he was on about his bank card and all his money got took. He was like, Hutty, you must know, bro. Come on, bro, you must know. You must know who's done it. Do you know, because Hutty, he keeps himself to himself.
What was Hutty's response to this conversation?
I don't know, mate. Honestly. Gav has took Smalley outside of Gav's flat, said Hutty's pinched the bank card.
And who Gav to you?
Gav, nothing to me. I just know Gav threw drugs.
Okay, so during the day you were at
Gav's,
and then at night time?
Me, Hutty, and went down to Hutty's.
Yeah.
We was smoking crack, obviously, and we had a bottle of wine as well. It was me drinking the wine. The atmosphere was brilliant when it was just us three. We was all having a good heart to heart. Because I've always had heart to hearts with Hutty. I've always looked at him. I just want after him because he struggles with his mental health. And then when them lot got back from the pub, the atmosphere just completely changed again. Hutty went real quiet and within himself. Gav and Smalley, they went up to Gav's spot for some vodka or something like that. Me and my girlfriend went to go find him.
So you left Hutty and he was still there?
He was still there on his own.
You've gone upstairs?
I wish I did stay with him because I would not have allowed anything like that to happen, you know. When I was going to get in the lift to go up into the thing, the lift was already up on the 12th floor. So I can't bother to wait, so I've gone walking up the stairs. So they must have been getting in the lift from Gav's flat, from the 12th floor, and gone down in the lift, done that with Hutty. So it's all happened within that, me walking up the stairs. When I've got onto the 12th floor to Gav's house, there wasn't there. So I've come back out and Gav's run past me. I've got Hutty out, get downstairs. I'm like, what the fuck? And I've ran. As I've ran in, there's Hutty laid on the floor, face down, full of blood. Smalley stood over him, I'm sat on the sofa. And I'm like, what the fuck? What's happened? And don't ring an ambulance, they'll be alright. And I said, what? I said, I'm ringing an ambulance.
I'm being service, is the patient breathing?
He's breathing, yes, but as soon as I've rang down there.
Right, tell me exactly what's happened.
I don't know what's happened, I've just literally got here. Can you do it, please? His breathing was really, really bad. Stop breathing. I started doing chest compressions, which the ambulance has told me to. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2.
That's really good. Keep going at that rate. This is all
And he kept repeating that until the services got here.
Lauren Roundhill's testimony just now is absolutely consistent with the first time she was interviewed under caution as a suspect. In terms of making a credible witness, that's really encouraging.
Explain to me what your thoughts are about going to court.
Well, I've been be honest with you, I'm very, very nervous. People will see it as a grass, whereas I see it as justice. I want justice for Hutty. He does not deserve it. Nobody deserves anything like that to happen to him.
Yeah.
For someone who lives within where this offence has taken place, has socialised with the victim, some of our witnesses, the suspects, to step outside of that and say, I want justice for my friend who has been murdered, is incredibly brave, knowing what the suspects have done to that individual.
People having panic attacks and stuff, like I say, waking up in the middle of the night having a panic attack and stuff, it's scary. I see what his face before I go to sleep every single night, and it's not nice. It's not a very nice feeling at all. And having to give him chest compressions, and I tried my best to save him, and I feel bad that I couldn't.
With the event having such a profound impact on Lauren Roundill, the team initiates a welfare programme.
He's obviously really a good friend and she's traumatised by it. See where we go, see if we can get her that support. Because if she's having flashbacks, well, we don't want that to, force her to go back in to try and deal with that. As soon as that comes through, we'll get that done.
We've now secured her evidence on visually recorded interview, so that's a real bonus for the investigation because we managed to secure that prior to any of the suspects getting released from custody, with the fear that they might have interfered with it.
With evidence mounting, DCI Ben Robinson briefs his boss, Detective Superintendent Alan Curtis.
So in relation to the suspects, whereabouts are they at the minute?
So Ian Smalley is in prison.
Yeah.
Gavin Leaning is leaving prison soon, and the other suspect is on bail. So against Smalley, we've got text messages from his phone. It says, "I've killed someone." We've got Lauren Roundhill putting him stood over with the victim on the floor, bleeding.
And then we've corroborated movements off CCTV in any case, so really the forensics is going to be the icing on the cake on that.
For him.
For him, whether that comes back or not.
So the two where it becomes more important, the forensics, is Leaning and the other suspect. According to Lauren Roundhill, is sat on the sofa when she goes in there and he then leaves. And Leaning, he ran past her to his flat saying, "I've just hit Hutty."
So there's just that one admission from him, so that's sort of implicated him as part of this assault. What we do know is our victim goes in uninjured, he never comes out, and he's laying on the floor, and then he subsequently dies. And at that point, only these people have gone in and out of the flat. Actually determining who's done what in that flat is a whole different kettle of fish, isn't it?
That's the forensics.
Yeah.
Alright. I've had a chat with the boss. He's pleased with how it was moving forward. We're waiting to build evidence against all the persons that we think are responsible. Part of that is the physical forensic work that's ongoing. If we go half-cocked with bringing them in and we don't have everything, we run the risk of not getting the charges, them being released, and then the risk to some of the people that have bravely come forward to provide evidence goes up substantially. This is the way we're doing it. This is the right way to do it. Morning, everyone.
6 days later, DCI Ben Robinson gathered the team.
What's up? So, just a little update. Lauren Roundhill is dead. Something she took her own life over the weekend, yeah. Yeah, so there we are. Apparently, it's connected to what's happened. I think that's what she said in some of the messages, and she couldn't cope or something.
After what had happened with Jonathan and her saying to him that she felt that she couldn't cope with what had happened.
It's incredibly sad because when I spoke to her, when she gave her evidence downstairs, she was starting to turn her life around. She was 2 weeks off the drugs and was working hard. But it's just really sad. It's like another victim for the job, really. I don't really know what to say this morning. It just feels a bit fucking... Yeah. Thank you. This job is just up and down, up and down. So just as we're winning, this happens. The second life wasted.
Next time,
you're under arrest for murder, okay?
After a coordinated day of arrests across 3 counties, the suspects are brought in for questioning.
Do
you wish to account for why Jonathan Hutty's blood is on your trainer?